Welcome to Chapter 18 on Particular Social Group, or PSG. This video, presented by the World Affairs Council of Austin, will examine this complex protection ground within U.S. asylum law. Our learning objectives are to define PSG, identify its three legal requirements, and distinguish between valid and invalid PSG formulations. We will also understand how PSGs apply to gender, family, and gang-related claims, and apply this analysis to court scenarios. Key terms for this chapter include particular social group, immutability, particularity, and social distinction. We will also cover nexus, the circularity problem, and different types of PSGs, such as gender-based and family-based. A PSG is one of the 5 protected grounds for asylum, alongside race, religion, nationality, and political opinion. It is often the most complex and heavily litigated ground, covering groups sharing a characteristic they cannot or should not be required to change. Common examples include domestic violence survivors and family units. A PSG must satisfy 3 legal requirements. First, immutability, meaning the characteristic is innate or fundamental. Second, particularity, requiring clear, objective group boundaries. Third, social distinction, meaning society recognizes the group as distinct based on norms or laws. It does not require visibility, only social recognition. We see several broad categories of protected social groups. Gender-based claims involve domestic violence or cultural oppression. Family-based groups are widely accepted. LGBTQ+ claims involve social stigma. Gang-related claims are often rejected unless specifically defined, and medical-based claims address stigma related to serious health conditions. The circularity problem dictates that a PSG cannot be defined solely by the harm they fear. The group must exist independently of the persecution. An invalid example defines the group by harm, while a valid example defines the group by a social condition that exists prior to the persecution. Beyond the PSG's validity, the respondent must prove nexus, a causal link between PSG membership and the harm suffered. Membership must be one central reason for the harm. For example, being targeted for family membership often qualifies as a valid nexus, unlike a purely personal dispute. To establish a valid claim, key sources of evidence include country condition reports, expert testimony, and police or medical records. Judicial evaluation criteria focus on whether the PSG is legally valid, if the respondent belongs to it, and if the harm is connected to that membership. Let's review some legal standards. Consider why PSG is the most complex protected ground, the difference between immutability and particularity, and the necessity of social distinction. Also, think about the definition of the circularity problem. Here are some assessment questions for your review. What are the 3 PSG requirements? Can you provide an example of a valid family-based PSG? Why are some gang-related PSGs rejected, and what does nexus mean in these cases? We now examine Practice Case 18, the matter of Rosa Alvarez. Rosa is a 32-year-old survivor of long-term domestic violence from Guatemala, who fled severe threats from her gang-affiliated ex-partner. The threat came from her ex-partner, affiliated with a local criminal gang. She fled after severe assault and death threats, with local police attempts at intervention being met with inaction. Rosa is currently residing in Del Rio, Texas, working for an immigrant advocacy NGO. 2 potential PSGs are proposed: Guatemalan women unable to leave abusive relationships, and members of the Alvarez family. We must analyze both against the 3-pronged legal test of immutability, particularity, and social distinction. The core legal questions involve nexus. Is the harm on account of her PSG membership or purely personal? Also, is internal relocation reasonable within Guatemala? And do country conditions regarding gender-based violence and gang impunity indicate the state is unwilling or unable to protect her? The evidence record includes credibility witnesses for the defense, such as a political activist and a parish priest, attesting to Rosa's community contributions. Government experts include Dr. James Mutual, an expert on Somalia, raising questions about the relevance of his expertise, and Dr. Sally Ray Smith, an expert on the regional political climate. The government's theory claims the violence is a private criminal dispute, not persecution, and Rosa can relocate within Guatemala. They argue the PSGs lack legal particularity. The defense theory argues that the intersection of gender, gang ties, and state failure creates an inescapable target, qualifying her as a refugee. Critical analysis points include the impact of the government's expert from Somalia on the evidence weight. We also consider how Rosa's community integration affects the view of discretionary relief. Finally, we must determine if the nexus requirement favors the Alvarez family PSG over women in abusive relationships for the closing argument.